Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of Capturing the Game Within the Game podcast, featuring me, your host, Desmond Jones. Today, we got another fabulous guest. He's a legend. But before I introduce him, though, I just want to remind the audience and that Capturing the Game is sponsored by Capture Sports Agency, where CEO and founder is Sean Smith Jones. We just always appreciate her always working the back channels and getting these interviews for us and just everything that she does for the podcast. Now we got that out the way. Let me go ahead and talk to you about this legend. The man, he is the vice president of studio productions at Big Ten Network. He is Quentin Carter. Quentin, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Nice to be with you.
Appreciate your time, man. I really, really do. But yeah, can you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Let me see. Let me start. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, graduated from there. Didn't really get into television or radio when I first got out of school. Started at CBS Radio as a desk assistant on the news side. Did that for 2 years, and then there was a launch of WFAN, the first all sports radio station in the United States. Started there as a PA, went from that to a producer, probably in a year, produced one of these shows out of a restaurant in New York, the Bill Mazer show from Mickey Mantl's Restaurant, which kind of propelled my journey into television, because I was able to get guests to come to the restaurant to be on the show, and got noticed by a person that worked at CBS, Mike Francesa, who recommended me to come work for CBS Sports. So I ventured over to CBS Sports started as a desk assistant in research. Want to say 6 months in, I became the chief researcher at CBS. Worked there for a year and a half as a chief researcher. Transitioned over to what we call a broadcast associate. Didn't really like that too much. Got into features and work with one of my mentors, Roy Hamilton, who, if people are familiar with him, he was a star guard at UCLA, played for the Pistons for a couple of years. So he was at CBS. I kind of went under his wing, worked with him on features as a junior feature producer. Left CBS to be a local producer at Channel 11 in New York. Then went to an all sports station in New York called News Sport, which was a 24-hour cable news show. From there, I went to ESPN for 2 years. It was a long commute. I basically commuted from Long Island to Bristol, Connecticut every day, which is 2 hours each way. Did that, worked in Major League Baseball production for a year, and then went to MSG Network as a producer. Then I was a coordinating producer. Then from there, came here to the Big Ten Network in 2007 as a coordinating producer, became a senior coordinating producer, and then vice president about 4 years ago. So it's been a long 28-year journey within the field, but it's been a successful journey, I would say, and also a fun time. Met some great people and worked with some great people. So it's been very, very enlightening, interesting, challenging as well, but it's been very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's to say the least. Just from all the different stops that you've been through, the journey that you've gone through. I mean, but one thing that we can say for certain is that you never stopped. You worked probably the low end jobs to where you're at currently.
Yeah.
So how's it been like working for or being part of the Big Ten Network since you've been there? Like, this is your of course longest day in your career, but what's it been like from where you started to where you're at today?
It's been interesting. It's Big Ten Network was the third launch of a network that I've been a part of, and so those other two stops helped me with the transition. We've grown so much, and so it's morphed into something that I'm surprised it's been as successful as it was. Didn't really know if it was going to be successful because it was nothing. Nothing had been done like this before. on this scale. The Mountain West had something, but it wasn't as a conference that has the history of the Big Ten. So we took a chance on it, and we've grown, and we've come up with some technologies that, basically changed the industry with our productions of games from our studios compared to having trucks, transitioning from, a small little entity as being seen as a regional to becoming a network and being viewed that way and treated that way. The transition's been great, and it's been great to be a part of it and see so many people come through here and grow on to do bigger and better things. So we've had some rough times as well. Everyone's gone through, the pandemic and everything, and, just changing all the way we produce studio shows is changed over the years. But it was a challenge at first. It became fun midway through, and then it's become a little more challenging now with everything that's going on in the world. But I can't say enough about how proud I am of the work that we've done. To see other people want to create their own networks for their conferences shows what a great job we have done. And anytime we're out on the road, it's great when people that work in other networks, come and say, hey, we always watch you guys to learn what's going on in the Big Ten. Really makes it feel rewarding that we're doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks for itself. When other people can recognize the work and, want to kind of model that or, kind of duplicate that process to, try to get the same results. I mean, that speaks volumes for itself. So I'm an engineer from day-to-day stuff. So I'm curious to know more about some of the technologies that you guys have to either, develop or transform or change out, that you were just mentioning or just talking about.
Right. So when we first launched, all our events were, truck events and our studios. And so we transitioned to where we can have our announcers either in our studios here in Chicago, and the cameramen will be on site, but our TD, our director, our graphics producer, our APs will all be here in Chicago. And we basically feed everything back, all the cameras, and so, that was the first thing we did. Then our engineers were able to figure out a way to have our announcers on site. So everyone, as the producer, the director, the TDs are all in Chicago, but the talent's on site, which a lot of companies, when we first started doing it, everybody was in, wherever their base was, like ESPN, they would be in Bristol or in Charlotte. Right. Our people would be in Chicago, but then we transitioned where now our announcers are actually on site and everyone else is back in Chicago. So it really helped the announcers still be a part of the production and being in the arenas as opposed to being in the studio. And on the studio side, we just changed the way we went from a traditional studio to now doing automation where, basically is one or two people as the director, the TD, the audio person. So we transitioned to that. Our cameras aren't automated, but our control room is automated. We'll have manned cameras, but everything else is basically done via computer. And then, this year we did a lot more things via Zoom, TVU, which was something that we had kind of used in the past just to do like pre and post game sound and report from our reporters. We used that to produce some of our shows this past year from home. I want to say we went from March through maybe mid to end of June of producing studio shows. Basically, everybody was at home. So we were able to use that technology to produce things that, 5-6 years ago, we didn't think we'd be able to do. So it was definitely a change of the way we produce things. And even now it's kind of, hybrid situation where some people work from home, some people are in the office, but we really embrace technology to do things that we would not have been able to do without everyone having to be in the office or on site.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I had to ask this because I'm like, I'm a technology type person, so I just love hearing just the different changes and stuff,
Yeah.
especially just the new stuff you had to implement and why you
Mhm.
did it.
Yep.
But what's been some of the biggest changes over the time that you've seen, like you spent in the industry?
Biggest change, I think this year, in the past 2 years, with the whole trying to push for more diversity, has
Mhm.
that's been the biggest change. I don't know how successful it's been, to be honest with you. But I think it's always been a quote unquote male white dominated industry. And I don't think that's going to change. Um, I'm hoping it does, but it just seems like it's the people that are in charge are the people that are in charge, and the people that are below them are the same as them. And so um, I don't think it's changed a lot from that from when I first got into the business. It's still the same number of Blacks and Hispanics than it was when I started this journey, 28, 29 years ago. Um, so I think that's the thing that it's been a little disappointing that it hasn't changed on the production side of it, but in front of the camera and talent wise, it's changed where there are a lot more blacks and women and Hispanics, and in front of the camera than behind the camera. And I still think that's something that we still need to address and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But it's just hard if you don't have people in upper management or with the ability to hire and fire people that are going to make those changes. Otherwise, it's never going to change.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In order to really, have some type of change, the it takes different people to have power in order to make that change.
Right. And also, what I tell my people all the time is if it's not in your heart to hire people or have people working around you that don't look like you, then it's never going to change. So you can't really force people to say, "Hey, I want you to hire this person, that person," because they're from a diverse group of people. They might come in, but they're not going to get the support and the admiration and the love that they would get if they were not forced to be hired. So you don't want to just hire someone just to hire them to, check that box off. You really want to hire people that are going to help you create content and production that you're going to be happy with and satisfied with, and not just we're going to hire this person here just as a token person to check that box, but they're not really going to be a part of our production and help us to improve and to strive to be great.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. Just because of the fact that you don't want just anybody just to represent or be in that
Right.
situation, because the wrong person will be a turnoff to someone else or
Yeah.
kind of ruin the next person's opportunity.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
what kind of skill sets or what should someone have, coming into the building with in order to try to make them stand out to be like the best candidate for that position?
Well, it depends. There's two ways I always look at people. Some people
Mhm.
that have experience, but they may not have all the experience that I would want for them to come work for us. But I can see their history, I can see their skill set, I can talk to them, and their desire is something that they need to have. The want to be great is something that you have to have. And what's hurt a lot this year is having a lot of Zooms as opposed to being able to meet with people face to face. You don't really get that. You can really get a sense of a person when you meet them in person than talking to them via Zoom or on a telephone.
Right.
So I think that's the big thing, that to come in prepared, to do your homework. I interviewed someone looking for a producer job that didn't know our shows, didn't know the people that worked on our shows, didn't know our hosts, didn't know our talent, but they were looking for a job, and they saw a Big Ten network available. Hey, I'm going to apply for that because it's a producer job, but not knowing the history of the network. Right away, that's a red flag to me, that you just want this job, but you're not going to be totally invested in it. So doing your homework, being prepared when you step into this office to meet with me or via Zoom, knowing some things about the network is going to help you. Being confident in yourself, asking questions, doing things that are not part of your job description. When I first got into the business, I was a PA at the radio station WFAN. I was very limited in, in this time on radio, we had to cut tape. So if you did an interview with someone, you had to splice it up and make it, the sound, you can basically, a minute thing, you need to cut down to 30 seconds. You need to take some ums and hums and hims out to make it work. I wasn't very good at that when I first started. And I would come in early and I would stay late and I would practice. I became so proficient at it where people were coming asking me to cut their tapes for them. And I said, of course I would do it because it's going to help me get better. But my bosses recognize the effort and the work that I put in. So sometimes they may not say it, but I tell my people all the time, I always see and I always hear. I may not say anything, you might not see me, but I'm always observant of what's going on. So going the extra mile when you don't have to is definitely something that's going to help you in this profession, because as if you're a Black man or a Black woman in this industry, there are not going to be a lot of people that work in your industry, in your department, that are like you. So you're going to be observed, not because maybe you're great at what you do, but because you don't look like everyone else there. So you're always going to be looked at because, hey, that person sticks out because of the color of their skin. So going above and beyond, they're going to see that, well, dang, I got here at 8 and this person was here already before I got here. And I'm leaving and that person's still here. Or if I put assignments in the rundown, they're finished theirs already and they're looking, hey, can I take that one on? I'll take that one. I'll take that one. Those are the things that help you move on and get recognized and get opportunities that you may not like. When I was at the radio station producing this show at this restaurant, a person was producing it. They didn't like it because you had to call people to try to get guests to come into the show. And I said, well, they asked me if I wanted to produce. I said, yeah, I'll produce it. I don't care. It's an opportunity to produce. That's what I wanted to do. And I made that show so great that when I was leaving, we had 6 or 7 people that wanted to produce that show because they saw how successful that I made that show. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I put in work. I called every, PR person for when a baseball team was coming into town. I'll be 2 weeks ahead. Hey, I want to see if this guy will come into the station, go into the restaurant. I'll give you free lunch if you guys come in. They would bring their teammates there. Every football, basketball, baseball team that came into New York, I was calling them. College teams, the same thing. And it took work. It was like I would have to do that before I went down to the station to do the show. And then when I was done with the show, go back to the station and make more calls. And this was before, we had internet and so I couldn't send emails. So you're actually making phone calls. But that's the thing, you have to put the work in. If you don't want to put the work in, you're going to get bypassed.
Amen. Thank God for technology, because I know those are a lot of long hours and long times.
Yes, they were.
I've heard horror stories about people working with tapes and reels on trying to, edit film. So I'm just grateful for technology for where we're at today, because I think that's made it make things a lot easier. But but I'm sure that there's a lot of skills that you learned back then that that transfers into today. That it all helps out,
Yes, definitely.
But going back into it, so what's you talked about being a producer. What's some of the things that you had to do or had to be able to do as a producer?
The most important thing I think is to be calm, to command the room, to be organized, to have your thoughts really in order and be prepared. One thing that I tried to do when I was a producer, I tried to be I was probably overly prepared. Most of my shows probably came in heavy because I had so much stuff in them. But if I was producing a show today, for instance, and the show was at 4:00 in the afternoon, when I wake up in the morning, I basically put my rundown together. And I'm like, okay, this is what my lead is going to be, and this is my A block, B block, C block, and I would do that when I'm eating breakfast in the morning. My show's not until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's what I'm doing. And of course, it's going to probably change because there's news that happens between 8 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But when I got into the office, my rundown was basically put together. So I kind of had a head start. So when things did happen or change, I wasn't starting from scratch. I wasn't trying to put my rundown together at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was the thing that I tried to do. Another thing is I don't like people yelling at me. So I tried to make sure that when I was in the control room, that everybody had that same demeanor. Like there's not, life and death is not the end of the world. If we don't have this tape, so be it. We'll figure it out. We'll transition and we'll do something else. But making sure everybody was in control, everyone had a calm demeanor, that it wasn't the crash and burn type situation, that we'll get through it. And then if something went awry after the show, we'll talk about it and figure it out and try to prevent it from happening again. So I think that's what kind of put me in a good position, because I tried to always be one step ahead in that control room. And before I got into the control room, having great communication with the people that were working for me. I think the biggest thing, and you brought it up earlier, is that I've worked at every position. So when I became a producer, I had been a PA, I've been an AP, I've been a broadcast associate, I've been associate producer, I've been a junior producer. So I had been at all of those positions. So I knew what it took, and I knew what they were going through and what their day-to-day things were. So if something didn't get done, I could understand why it didn't get done. And so it kind of helped me control the situation and put everybody at ease, because I wasn't going to lose my mind because we didn't have this done. This graphic was wrong. Well, as a BA, I did graphics, for games. So I knew, those things could happen. And I know, okay, well, the machine froze up. So what are we going to do? So those things aren't going to throw me off. And so I think that really helped me understanding where people were at in their careers, helped me prepare to be a producer. And then when I got in that chair, treating everybody with the respect that I would want and I wanted when I was in those positions, kind of helped me.
Yeah, I'm just from the president of our conversation, like I can tell you give that respect to those others, because you've seen a lot, you've done a lot, you know what it takes. So especially when people have that experience being in those roles, you understand what it feels like to be in those shoes, and the things that can happen or the things that can go wrong. So you're not surprised. You just waiting, you just expecting it to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, that's right. The truth. You're like, well, what could go wrong is going to go wrong, and I have to have a plan B, because I know something's going to happen.
Right. Oh man. But what's some of the biggest, if you had for the people that's in the industry, what's some of the biggest do's and don'ts that you've learned?
Do's, be humble, be grateful, be respectful. Don't ask questions. Don't get caught always in the moment. Sometimes you have to take a step back. I go back and forth sometimes between telling people don't take things personally, and then on the other hand, take things personally. I'm probably more of the mindset that I take things personally. I think I've heard and seen things and been treated a way that I know I'm being treated that way because I'm Black, and so I take it personally because I understand that. But sometimes I have to take a step back, and to go from point A to point B, sometimes you have to take a step back and don't take it personally, but take it professionally, and always remember, don't forget, and then try to make the best of that situation. I think networking is so important. And I tell my kids all the time is, don't reach out to people when you only need something. Pick up the phone. I mean, it's easier today than it was back in the day where you had to pick up the phone and call people. but just sending a text to someone just saying, hey, just touching base, hope everything is well. And that's it. It doesn't have to be anything like that or what's going on in your world. But then if you do need them, say in 2 years, it's not the first time I've heard from you. It was 2 years ago, because the only time I'm hearing from you when you need something, but it kind of leaves you a little bit more accepting and wanting to help them when they kept in contact with you, as opposed to someone that you haven't heard from in 2 years, but now all of a sudden I'm calling you because I need a job or I need a reference. So I think that's so very important. And don't burn any bridges. When you leave a place to go to another place, don't badmouth the place, even though they may have treated you wrong and it's time for you to go. Shake your hands and give them your 2-week notice and wish them the best, because you never know. You might have to work there again, or you might have to work with people that work there, and like, hey, I remember this person. I really didn't like that person, and I don't want to work with them. When you're the minority, you're going to see more people that don't look like you more so than people that look like you. So you have to kind of, think that way. And the last thing I always tell people is, you got to play chess and not checkers. And you have to try to be one step ahead of everything that is going on and what you're doing, and be prepared for things that, if you're prepared for them, you can handle them a little better than the times where you have no idea it's coming at you and you have to react to it and you're reacting in the wrong way. So, just being prepared and being overly prepared is definitely going to help you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Especially because me personally, I know I work in a white dominated field, and I've always, being in engineering, it's predominantly white. It's white, dominated. So, I stick out. What can I say? But I want to make sure that I stick out for all the right reasons, other than just the complexion of my skin. What made you want to journey into a predominantly white industry?
Well, when I didn't know it was all white, to be honest with you. Like,
sure.
Growing up, I watched, basketball, football, baseball, played it all. And I always wanted, if I couldn't be a professional, I wanted to be a part of television production. That was my goal. And when I went to college, we didn't have a television station there. We had a radio station. So I was able to do a radio show, but I was also able to do analysis for the radio for basketball at Pitt. So I was able to do that. So it gave me that, hey, I like doing this. I like being a part of production. It keeps me close to the game. I knew, people on the players on the teams from not just Pittsburgh, but, I'm born and raised in New York. So, I grew up with all those players. So it was like, hey, it keeps me close to the game. I didn't understand any of the behind the scenes stuff. Because when you watch the game, there might be a Black person on there, as an analyst. So you think, okay, well, the time where it started really becoming enlightening is when you would watch Thanksgiving or Christmas games and they show all the people in the truck, wishing their families happy Thanksgiving. And I mean, even to this day, you watch those and you see some broadcasts, you didn't see any Blacks at all, but some you see one or two. And if besides the analysts or maybe the play-by-play occasionally, that's all you would see is like, okay, well, you're trying to tell me there's no audio people that are Black or camera people. And so, but it didn't deter me from wanting to do what I wanted to do. But I just learned, my grandfather taught me a long time ago that you have to be better than everyone else. And so you have to go in with that mindset. And when you go into business, whatever it is, that you got to be better than everyone else. In school, you got to be better than everyone else. You have to have that mindset. And so that kind of, it was ingrained in me. So I was like, okay, well, it's not going to deter me because there are not that many. And if I get there, and then I'm going to be that one. And so, I was the first Black person they hired at WFAN radio. So it was like, okay, I'm going to be that person, and I'm not going to be the person that is going to be, well, you only hired him because he's Black. That might have been their initial thought, but at the end of it, it's going to be like, damn, he's a very good employee. He's really good at what he does. He grew from a PA to a producer and left to go, onto television production. So, we made a good hire. So it didn't deter me from trying to get into the business. It kind of just something that I always wanted to do. And I guess I was too naive to think that I shouldn't be a part of it, because I was like, this is what I want to do. So I'm going to go try to do it. And, I was blessed to be in opportunities where I was given opportunities to shine. And when I was given those opportunities, I did.
Yeah, I think that, definitely speaks volumes. Just because that little naive it takes to really, you like, just my father taught me the same thing your grandfather taught me, which is, you have to go into every situation and you have to either walk out being the best or just being better than everyone else is in the room. And I mean, that's, propelled me at each level that I've been at, just because everywhere I go, I always know that I have some type of target on my back, whether it's good or bad. Somebody has an eye on me, and what I do outside, outside, the own comforts of my home, is what's going to make a difference, is what's going to matter, or that's what I'm going to be remembered by.
Yes.
Oh man. That just remind me. I felt like, this is like just me talking to my pops over again. Just like, yo, remember when I told you this? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's a journey. It's not for the faint of heart. If you're not, if you don't have thick skin, you might, it's easy to quit, and it's easy to give up, and it's easy to say, hey, you know what, this isn't for me. But like I tell people all the time, that's just because if it doesn't work out here, it could work out somewhere else. And even you go to a different business, it still might be the same obstacle. So if this is something that you really love and want to do, then you have to, put those gloves on and come out swinging. And sometimes you got to bob and weave before you throw that haymaker and fight through it.
Yeah, gotta know when to bob and weave. Can't get knocked out.
Exactly.
So with you being a VP, what does some of your day-to-day activities look like? Because I imagine that it's a lot, and I'm not a VP, but there's just me looking at you, I just know that it has to be a lot.
It's a lot. It's it's between hiring productions people, not just staff and freelancers, staffing our unit, our productions day to day, how they're performing. Are we doing the best we can? Do we have the right people that are working here? Also looking ahead to what's coming up. It's not just we got production today, tomorrow. Okay, well, what about, we got to look ahead to basketball media day, football championship game, Final Four. So it's the day-to-day stuff, but it's also trying to and looking ahead to what's going on and dealing with the sales department, the marketing department, the digital department, the vice president, the president, interns, HR. It's just so many things that go on during the course of the day that you're like, okay, well, I got to worry about this. Okay, well, this comes up. Okay, this person calls in sick, so who's going to replace them? Okay, we have this show, we have programming you're dealing with. So it's just a lot of different things on a everyday basis. But hiring good people to work for me is definitely a blessing, because some of the things that are on my plate, I can transfer over to them and say, okay, you deal with the digital group. You deal with HR, if they can deal with HR. If we have a new hire, you show them around. Well, I can't show them around because, I have this meeting. The worst part of being a vice president probably is all the meetings that you have. It became worse because of Zoom, because sometimes you don't really have to have a meeting. You can walk by someone, have a quick conversation, and keep going. Now it's like, oh, I got to have a Zoom meeting, and it might last 5 minutes, but it's something that you have to block out on your calendar. But it's a lot. It's fun though, because we have a great group of people that work here, and everyone's striving to do the best thing and to put a great product on the air. And so that helps the day-to-day stuff, and when you get frustrated with things aren't going the way you want them to, and you don't have enough people to get done what you want to do to the level that you want to do it at. But having great people and staff help you go home and say, okay, we had a good day today. And just like I said, the biggest part of it is trying to deal with the day-to-day, but also looking ahead to try to make sure you have that right balance of of doing what needs to be done today, but also preparing for tomorrow.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you have people around you that are committed to that vision, committed to the
Mm-hmm.
goals, and especially people that can step up when needed or when asked.
Yep.
Having those right qualities around you, you can almost conquer any situation
Yep.
that you come across.
Yes, you can.
So one last question before we go into the rapid fire stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
how can people really get into the industry? What's something that someone can do to really try to make them stand out to get them into the industry?
It depends on what level you're talking about. So if it's someone that's already in the business, it's putting your tape together, um, interviewing as much as you possibly can. Even things have changed because of the pandemic, but what I always recommended for people is, say if you want to work at the Big Ten Network, I shouldn't say this because I know it's going to come back to haunt me, but um, and we don't have any jobs open at the time, but I just want to come in, meet with you, just to meet in person, face to face, because that's going to be more valuable than this resume, this piece of paper, this email with my resume on it. So if you can go meet with people, if you can go shadow people, it's going to give you an advantage. If you're in college, working at a radio station or a television station is going to give you an advantage over someone who just took communication classes. Because if you can put on your resume that you actually were part of a production, it's going to help you get an entry level job easier than someone who doesn't have that. Because I won't have to really train this person as much because they know it, because they've done it and they've gone through it. If you can get internships, that's even if you're in the business and you want to work somewhere else, if you can get an internship somewhere else, a place that you may want to work, do that. The more experience that you can get, the better it's going to help you try to find a job and get in this business. And that's why I said networking is so important, because you need to really know people and help people help bring you along. And what's a challenge sometimes for Black people in this industry, and I'll just be honest with you, is that they are fearful of bringing other people on or bringing them in, because they do not want to be seen as if only people that they know and bringing in are people that look like them. Whereas if it's on the other side, people don't really have to worry about that. So it sometimes is a burden, because of like, well, if I bring 3 guys in and they're all Black, people are going to think that, I'm only bringing in Black people, and I don't want to bring any white people in. But if you don't bring any in and nobody else is bringing any in, there's never going to be anybody there. So trying to find that right balance is always a key. So all the people that, are in the position to hire people, you have to not worry about what people may say. You have to just do it. I'll give you a short thing. When I was the chief researcher at CBS, I hired people that I knew, and we already had people there. So I hired 3 people that I knew that were all Black. And one of the white guys that walked by, and he said, "Wow, I've never seen this many Black people in the research department before." And it took me aback for a second, but then I asked him, I said, "Let me just ask you a question. Did you ever walk past there when I was the only Black person in this department and say, damn, I've never seen that many white people in this department? Or I have seen so little Black people in it." I said, "You never said that." And so it's always on us to feel like, okay, well, we're going to be criticized for putting people in positions where other people are not. And so if you hire the right
Absolutely.
people, then you don't have to worry about, well, this person, like, I'm never going to hire someone because, white or Black, because that's what they are, but I'm going to hire the most qualified person that I think they are. And a lot of times the problem that we have is that people say, well, they're not the right fit. And
Hmm.
so we have to get past that and say, well, that has nothing to do with fit. It has to be with the right person that's going to make your place better, or they're the best qualified person for that position, regardless of what their race, creed, or color is. And once we get there, I think we'll be in a better place. And so, that's how, when people get in the door, they have to support one another and and bring people along, but also, just understand what's going on around them.
Yeah. The one thing I always fear about, or when people come to me asking me stuff, is when they take my answers, they take it as the answer for all the Black people.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it's not the case. I'm not trying to speak for everybody. I'm just
Right.
trying to speak from just
For
my
me.
opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion, my
Yeah.
perspective. And you just get labeled like, well, since you're the only Black person that speaks out,
Yeah.
you're speaking for all the Black people at the company or whatever.
No.
So I'm like, no, I'm just giving you. You came for me for my voice, my opinion.
Right. Yep.
Here it is. So
that's it.
That's it. Man, I thought about one other thing I wanted to ask you about was what's the biggest difference between going to producing for a television show and producing for a radio show?
It's the same mindset. It's a lot easier for radio than it is for television. Television has a lot more nuances and a lot more people involved in radio. Radio basically is a radio engineer and an audio person, and the talent and whoever else is on it, where television, you need camera people, director, TD. So it's a lot more people involved. It's a lot more intricate because you have video and graphics, where so in radio is just audio. So that's the biggest difference. More people involved can cause either the show to be better or worse, depending on who those people are. But the mindset is the same. It's a little easier in radio because if you do it's more free flowing, it's more conversational and not as segmented as television is. Like, even though you may have 4 segments in a radio show and a television show, it may be longer segments on the radio side than the television side, just because you're not transitioning from this, that, as opposed to, well, we're going to spend this block just talking about, the Cubs. And then the next block will be the White Sox. And then, in television, you'll probably spend 2 minutes on the Cubs and then 2 minutes on the White Sox and then transition into something else. So it's a lot more detailed, involved more in television than radio.
I got you. That's why I see and feel, because I consume a lot. I consume a lot of radio or a lot of podcasts, and probably not as much TV as I used to, but I still consume a fair decent amount. So, and I always just look from like the lenses of like, what does it take to produce this type of show, and just try to reverse engineer it from there. So just always just thinking, always just working on. So.
Okay.
But thank you for that concludes the first part of our podcast interview. Okay. So now we're gonna go ahead and transition to our game within the game segment, where we just ask little fun, little silly questions to close out. So my question for you is, are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal raisin cookies?
Oatmeal raisin.
Let's go. Okay. Let's go. Good choice. Good choice. So I'm going to the next one. TV shows or movies?
TV shows.
What's your favorite TV show that you're watching right now?
Probably All American.
Yes, that's a solid show. So between both me and my wife, we watch All American and Chicago Fire. So those are two that
Chicago PD is one of my other favorites too.
Yeah, that's my brother. So I told him that I was going to catch up on Chicago PD.
Yeah.
So I still got some downtime before the new season kickoff. So I may try to get to it. Yeah. Try to check it today. All right. I probably haven't been able to ask this question to a whole lot of people, but I feel as though I can probably ask you this. Windows or Mac?
Windows.
Okay. Why so?
Mac just takes too long for me to I don't work on a Mac every single day. So it kind of, when I do go on a Mac, it kind of slows me down. So I just like, okay, because of everything else is basically a regular computer. So I'm like, it's just easier for me just to do that than, okay, I got to figure out this. I got to think about that. I'm like, I don't have all the time for that. I'm like, okay, I just want to get it done.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. If you can go pro in any sport, what would it be?
Basketball.
First love?
Yep, first love. Yeah.
I understand. What team?
Knicks.
Okay. Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Respectable choice. Favorite sports moment that you've either seen or witnessed?
Witnessed. Probably Doug Williams winning the Super Bowl. I think that to me just kind of put everything on time. And John Thompson winning the NCAA tournament. Those two are probably my 1-2s.
Those are good choice. I think for me, my favorite moment it's two of them. One of them's seeing the White Sox win the World Series, and the second one was probably Devin Hester kickoff return for the touchdown for the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
definitely two iconic ones. We're not gonna talk about the results of that game. But however, those are two of my favorite moments for me.
Yeah. Okay.
If you had a chance to take over any organization, who would you choose?
Probably the NCAA.
Nice popular choice. Everyone wants to take over the NCAA, which I don't blame them. You know, they someone needs to take over now.
Yes, so, they do.
But things about to change with that, though, with the name, image, and likeness and stuff.
Yeah, so. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that for sure. But yeah, that concludes our rapid fire. So you survived.
Oh, thank you. It wasn't that difficult. That's just good.
Yeah. We try not to be difficult, you know.
I appreciate that.
But one final question for you before we kind of let you go is, where can people follow you at or get a hold of you at on social media or anyway, just to try to follow along with your career and keep up with you?
Probably LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to get me. I don't try to do too much social media, just too many things out there that I don't want to be a part of. So it's easier for me to do something on the business side. Like Facebook seems more of a personal thing. And so if someone messages me and wants to friend me on Facebook, if I don't know them, I'm really not going to friend them. LinkedIn is kind of like, we keep it more on the business side, which is the way I would like to go. So that's probably the easiest place to get me.
I understand. Thank you for that. For all the listeners, subscribers out there, we thank you for tuning in. Please follow us on capturing_the_game_pod. That's on Instagram. For Twitter, you want to follow us at CTG_podcast. YouTube, just go ahead, follow us and type in and hit the subscribe button. We punch in Capturing the Game podcast, and also check out our Facebook page at Capturing the Game. Quentin, it was an honor and pleasure to talk with you, to meet with you, man. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for hopping on the podcast and recording this episode today with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care. Keep doing what you're doing. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you.